Welcome to Beyond the Firewall, the business bytecast, where tech and business collide. Get expert insights, real-world strategies, and the latest trends in bite-sized episodes. Stay ahead, stay secure, and explore what's beyond the firewall. Hello, everybody, and thank you for listening to another episode of Beyond the Firewall, where we bridge technology and businesses across the globe and in various industries. Today, we are very fortunate enough to have a key industry and representative from the real estate industry named Jeff Johnson, co-founder of the Johnson team at Remax Professionals in Toronto. Jeff's been involved with real estate at Remax for over 23 years, 15 years leading the Johnson team. And the Johnson team is one of Toronto's top leading performant real estate groups. We're really excited having you on the show. Thank you for joining us today. Pleasure having you.
Thank you for inviting me. I appreciate it.
So talk to me about real estate. Talk to me about, what inspired you to start the Johnson team 15 years ago.
I've been self-employed since I was 19. I used to own 5 Subway sandwiches. So I came up through Wendy's when I was 15. I was general manager when I was 18. And so I've always been kind of in the service business. When my partnership dissolved, when I sold my Subways, I went back to Wendy's. I was a corporate training manager, training franchisees that were buying. Tim Hortons at the time was bought by Wendy's. So a lot of Tim Horton owners were buying Wendy's. So I was training a lot of them how to run Wendy's stores. And the most famous person I ever trained or that bought was Todd Brooker, a Canadian skier, a gold medalist, I think, bought 2 places in Collingwood, 2 Wendy's in Collingwood. And somebody said to me one day, I'd make a great real estate agent on a Sunday. I quit my job on a Tuesday. And it was ever since then, I make quick decisions. My wife didn't then, she was staring at the ceiling for a while thinking, what has he done? He's given up this great job. So, but it was great. I had success right from the beginning, just because we're very service focused. That's like one of our mottos is service till sold, not selling people till sold. And it's been very good to me because it fits one of the natural things people need: food, shelter, and clothing. Right, so it fits one of the needs.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing. So you've transitioned from retail, quick service, hospitality in that respect, and you pivoted, selling customers products and food all the way to now, high net worth products or a product which is a house or a condo or some sort of real estate, and now you're just providing that transitional experience and customer service. Explain to me that, like, how do you do that in the sense of, bringing that value and making it not just a transactional experience.
You know what's kind of great is that I love when I'm out helping people hit a dream, hit a goal, right? Because a lot of people, they save, they work hard, and they do something, and everyone kind of dreams when they're a kid they're going to have a white picket fence or something like that. um, when you find out what really it inspires people, it inspires me. That's why a lot of real estate agents like to deal with only sellers. I love dealing with buyers because you get to know them more intimately. You get to see what you meet them as people, and what their kids do, what their family does, and you really meet some interesting people. And to me, you're not selling somebody a house, you're selling them a home, because there's a big difference, right? Home is where the heart is. I find that it makes me very satisfied when, when they get their keys and when I go deliver them their warm basket when they buy a place. It's a very fulfilling thing. And what's great about the business is if you service people properly, you get referrals, and that's the best kind of compliment you could ever have. Yes, Google reviews are great, but when somebody says, you did such a good job with my friend, they weren't that qualified or they weren't this, and you really helped them out, that makes me feel really good.
Yeah, that's interesting. And listening to you talk about, your approach on customer service and learning about it from the buyer side, how do you instill that type of culture where the perception out on the market is that real estate agents are a little bit more about the transaction? And how have you brought that culture and training into your team? Because obviously you've built a massive successful team. How did you, build that out? How did you bring that methodology out to your staff or your team for them?
I think it all comes from coming from a servant's heart. So you come from a service heart. Our core values on our team are hardworking, client first, and always learning. So when I find a good idea, when I find a way of somebody's helped somebody else, I copy that. I call it R&D, rip off and duplicate, because there's a lot of more people that are smarter than I am. So if I get a new customer service book, or if I get some way of we can deliver something, if I learn from our team members, we always share at a team meeting who delivered the unexpected this week. So we copy it. So you might have done something, and then that's a great idea. Let's start implementing that. I get into action very quickly. So I don't think about things. I'd rather get into action. If it doesn't work, I'll pivot rather than think about it, think about it, think about it. So you really always want to train people. Let's get into action now. How can we service people beyond what the expectations are? Like we take care of painting, we take care of the headaches of people because we're trying to solve their problems to take the stress off of them. Because most people think, wow, I can't find a painter. Wow, I can't find a babysitter. I can't find anything. So when somebody's my client, we give them a professional directory. We try to solve all their problems, future problems. We're also very long-term relationship building. So when you do buy a house with us, you're a client for life. So we every month we are doing something. Right now we've got pictures with Santa or pets with Santa. We just did the pumpkin giveaway. We just did Thanksgiving pies. So we try to keep it very community and very involved. We send birthday cards when somebody has a birthday. They get a birthday card with a scratch ticket. Something small, but something no other realtors are doing. The other thing is, when somebody buys a new pet, we send the pet a birthday card. We send children a birthday card. We try to be involved with their family as part of our family. So it's not transactional. Most people are skin hunt and kill. We are, we're not. We're a relationship for life, and that speaks to how many hundreds of past clients that we have that come to movie events or do something that we do. We're always trying to give that little bit extra. What can we do this year that we didn't do last year? Just to put always stacking the cool, I call it.
Very cool. So you're doing the emotional slash experience selling kind of aspect of it versus transactional, and that is not common, I would say, in business today. I think a lot of call it transactional business that you may or may not see the client again, because at the end of the day, some people buy a house and they're not going to move for 5 to 10 years, and sometimes even longer than that. And so the assumption is that I've made my transaction, and if they do call me, they call me. If they don't, they don't. And here you guys are in changing the game and really nurturing those relationships for the long game. And that's a very different approach from what I've seen in the industry. So good kudos to you guys.
Yeah, it's interesting because everybody wants to buy, no one wants to be sold, right? So
Yes.
I try to always put myself into somebody else's position. And again, we've built that culture because that's what we role model. Because my wife and I are kind of leaders where it's reverse pyramid. We're lifting people up from the bottom and just role modeling what it looks like. We have kind of systems. Just because I had franchises, because I came up from Wendy's, I want 1 + 1 = 2. But my outcome is, how do I give wow service all the time? And we're very fortunate. We have lots of Google reviews, and it's. I love what people say in the Google reviews. Our response time was quick. They cared about more than the transaction. They cared about us. Those are the things that mean something to me. That's when I know I've won.
That's amazing. And so you mentioned something about systems and processes. I think that a lot of businesses today are always struggling on creating, standard operating procedures. I'm not going to go to crazy acronyms here, but it doesn't sound like your practice works on an ad hoc basis. You sounds like you guys have built out stuff. And can you expand on a little bit of that? Like, are you using technology today? Obviously, I'm going to ask the tech show, but are you using a little tech here? Are you creating dashboards? Are you creating some sort of, systems there that, is sort of, I'm not going to say proprietary, because you mentioned about I found an amazing tool, or I found an amazing process, and I'm going to repurpose that for my practice. But can you expand on some of the, yeah, I'm not going to say secret sauce, but some of the procedures that you guys have done, maybe some of the tech that you guys use.
So, because I'm very outcome driven, I've always been coached. I've had a real estate coach for 26 years. So, I've always put myself in situations where I'm the poorest person or the least successful person in the room, because that's the biggest growth opportunities. So, from a tech perspective, in my kind of circle, I'm in this group that's about 30 or 40 of us that are high big teams. So then we say what's working, what's not working. So what tech we're really using a lot right now is we use Slack. We use a very robust CRM, which can record calls. And it's, if we want to send out bulk emails and stuff, it now has an AI component, which is helping, better, worded emails or better worded text messages and stuff. I'm trying to get in, through our conversation, I'm trying to get more into, I don't want to say try because I don't try, I do, getting more into AI. So I've resisted it a bit. So I'm more open to it just because I don't understand it. I'm a guy that wants to just tell me what to do and I'll get it done rather than researching it and stuff. What we're
Hmm.
finding though with AI is I'm really being able to build out dashboards and stuff a lot quicker for the outcome I want. I'm able to give AI, this is the outcome I'm looking for, help me build that. So we're using some of that tech just with, standard Google, like we're Google Suite people. I have Microsoft too, but we're more Google Suite, I would say.
Sure. So that's amazing. So you're dabbling in the AI world, which is great to hear because I think a lot of businesses still are with the head in the sand, thinking it's not going to impact their business. But I think that everybody needs to play with that. And then you've got other tools that you're utilizing today that is obviously enhancing your staff's ability to service that client first. Would you say your company sees technology as, call it a profit center or a cost center because of the way you're using technology? Is it making you money or is it still kind of a burden?
I would say it makes things easier. It makes things, it's a tool that we're looking to get to help us get better streamlined outcomes because I'm very outcome driven, right? So I'm looking at stuff like Asana is very good. It's very robust. It's a little bit more techy than we need, but Monday we capped out on. I really, really liked Monday, but Monday just could only do 1,000 tasks. So when something like you become a client, we task you out for the rest of your life. Well, when you have, five, six, seven, 800,000, not thousand, 800 past clients, you can't, 1,000 tasks in the future is nothing. So Monday
Right.
just outgrew it. I'd say Asana is more clunky than it needs to be. Monday was very streamlined, much easier. But, if I get an idea, like we're talking and you give me an idea, I'll put it in Asana right away for future to talk about in my exec meeting. So I find that technology is good and it'll give me, little hints on when with the AI component, ask this question. This might be a follow-up question, which is good because I like that. It gets my brain thinking more.
So you're embracing that and I find that amazing to hear, what would be, I call it brick and mortar because we're still selling physical products in your world, right? Like for me, most of what I'm selling today is virtual, right? Here's a subscription, here's another, call it cloud-based product. And, outside of selling a laptop today, most customers don't even touch anything on an infrastructure perspective. But you're embracing this whole new world of technology to enhance the end customer experience on an industry that's been around for, I'm going to say, thousands of years, because we've always had homes, we've always bought property, and you're taking that as a leadership in the sense of a role there. Talk to me about what you can disclose. Talk to me about what you see as the future experience, for customers today in the sense of how Remax and your team are going to deliver that experience. And, as a consumer looking to buy a property in the coming years or even coming months, what does that look like? What's coming down the road if you can disclose some of the, coming technologies?
I think like real estate, since I've been in real estate, there's been a lot of changes that have happened that they always said that we're going to go out of business. One, when the HST went on our commissions, they thought that was going to be the end. When there was a double land transfer tax in City of Toronto, which is substantial. You're 60, 70, $80,000 on a million to buy. That's a lot of money after tax dollars. The thing when the internet, well, that was the first thing when the internet came. Oh, we're not going to be able to sell anymore. What's great about our business is that real estate is very emotional. So when like I said to you in the beginning, you're not buying a house, you're buying a home. So there's always going to be a need for that guidance of how do you feel when you walk in this? Can you see you living in this house? Where I think technology is going to enhance things. It's going to make it a little more streamlined for us after the sale. With the sale happening, you still need people to have that emotional kind of connection with the property. They want your opinion. They want to know what your thoughts are on those things. So I don't think that real estate is going to be impacted on a negative perspective with the technology. I think technology is going to be enhancing it to make the services and everything so more streamlined, because there's still going to have to be somebody that's going to walk somebody through. Like I was just showing some lofts before this call, and I'm giving the person a perspective. You wanted sunlight in this place. If you look at this view right now, it's cloudy, but this is not east west facing, so you're not going to get sunlight for your plants. I'm listening to what they're saying. So I think there's always going to be a need. What I'm very excited about is what you were talking to me before about, is the AI assistant. I think that's very exciting, how that's going to build out in the next, like you were saying, probably 48, 24 months. That's very exciting. I think that's the next generation of just putting more, stacking the cool on that.
Yeah, and I see that because people buy from people, especially when you're not talking here a $5 sub, right? Like, or these days I think a sub is $10, but you're not buying a sandwich here. You're buying, in some cases, a lifelong investment. People save up to make these purchases. You're spot on when you say it's an emotional buy, and the stresses involved there, and then if you're married, you've got your spouse that is looking at it going, okay, you've got a difference of opinions, there's different thought processes in there, and AI can help you, make some, call it broad stroke decisions on like where the best schools are, and, what neighborhoods are great for families, or if you're, young and single, you're looking for what neighborhood may make sense from a social perspective or transit perspective. But, at the end of the day, it's very difficult to kind of put all the pieces together and even ask the right questions. And
Yes.
so, like if you're a first time homeowner, and you're looking to get into the market, I think that one of the challenges, and I remember going through it myself, was like, okay, well, what questions do I need to ask? And what am I looking for? I had no clue, and so how do you guys help buyers kind of get through that initial phase? Or do you see that as still going to be, first of all, what do you guys do today? And how do you see that being improved or changing over the next let's call it 24 months as AI may step into the play?
I think that what I've found is that technology's been, around forever. Like my kids, your kids, they don't know anything else but technology. And what I find when I'm having a conversation with somebody or I'm training somebody on our team, everybody thinks they know everything because of these things in our hands: telephone. Soon as you tell them something they don't know, all of a sudden everything changes, because they think they know, because we asked, like you said, we asked the right questions, and asking the right questions, you find out what's important to them, where the phone will give you broad strokes. The other thing we try to do is, if somebody's looking for the first time home buyers, I love, like they're my favorite kind of buyer, because that's the most exciting people are going to be. So we sit down and we do a buyer consultation, which is ask them certain questions that are always going to be important. Yes, can AI help that? 100%. But it's listening and hearing the tone in their voice, what's important to them and what's not important to them. Because I find that you ask somebody the first question, it's never the first answer. It's the second and third why after that first question is really what's important to them. Because they always do surface level stuff, because everyone thinks that they're out to sell you something. When you sit down from somebody who's not a referral, they somehow think that, if they go and see houses with us, we're going to somehow force them to buy something. We're going to hold the pen and we'll move the paper kind of thing. It's just not like that. And again, you build trust with people as soon as you educate them on something they don't know. And like I said, AI is fantastic, but it just doesn't ask that next question. Why is that important? What's important about that? Because everyone will say, well, price is very important. Like, but that's really not important. It's that, you're planning to have kids. You want to be in the right schools. Well, what is right schools? Right? Some things, like people would know. One of the best high schools in Etobicoke, one side of the street goes to one school, which people everybody wants to go to, and one side goes to the other high school they don't want to go to. But if you don't know those simple little things, they'll think, oh, it's on the street, so it must be okay.
That's massive. And you mentioned something that I think at this point in time, AI and technology will not be able to identify is tone. So, it's like online dating, I call it. Like you swipe right, you swipe left, you can chat with somebody online. And that whole tone conversation, either through a virtual window like what we're doing now, and I can see your face, I can see your facial expressions. But I will tell you that when I do that and I talk to my clients in person, and just sitting and how they slouch and how they lean forward and how they, engage you and look at you in the eye, or they look away, you can pick up where they're comfortable and where they're not comfortable, especially on these big decisions, because it is not a tangible, it's an emotional and psychological aspect of it. And I don't see how AI, at least in the short term, is going to be able to pick that up. We see some sci-fi movies out there where, like it'll scan the body temperature and it'll know that your body temperature went up by 1 or 2 degrees because you're starting to sweat, from the decision making process. But it is an emotional state, and you mentioned it in the sense that you go through that consultation, you figured that out, and then from there you're better able to guide them through that experience with a little bit more hand holding and a little bit more emotional attachment to it. I
Yeah.
think that that's the most powerful thing.
And like you mentioned too, is that there's usually two people involved. Very few people buy places alone, and then it's what's important to you might not be what's important to your wife or your spouse, or and then you have to ask that question: what's your top three things? What's your top three things, and where's the compromise? Because usually it's because we're talking about a home where one spouse usually has more of a say because it's a home, not a house. So you have to listen to that, and you have to, sometimes think, okay, this person's voice decision is more important in this matter here than this person's decisions in this matter. And if you don't ask the right questions, you don't get that body language. And especially when, I can give you an example. This couple I was showing, the husband said, "Oh, this is the man cave. Oh, this garage is always the one I wanted. Jeff, we're going to call you later." Wife wasn't saying anything. "This is the house for us. We're going to call you later. We're going to do an offer tonight." And I knew the wife was not feeling the kitchen. I felt it. And then I called him the next day and said, "Do you want?" "No, we changed our mind." "Well, really?" The wife changed her mind. Now she didn't say anything. And I have some people are very vocal, and sometimes, but if I wasn't reading her body language, I wouldn't have made plans that night because I knew I wasn't doing an offer, right? So because you got to, and it's just reading people, because I've just seen the movie so many times before I know how it ends.
Yeah, it's funny you say the man cave. I remember one of the houses I looked at before many years ago when we were looking at moving, and they had like a sauna in the basement and they had this wet bar. And I was like, I got all excited about this basement that was done up, and I was like, wow, this is great. And then we got home and my wife's like, so where are the kids gonna play? And I'm like, oh, we'll make space. And they're like, no, no, the basement's set up like a club. Like it had a bar and it had a sauna and it had like a arcade. I'm like, we can take out their, pinball machine. I'm like, and then like, yeah, no, the deal was off the table. So I completely can relate to those types of circumstances where your brain goes into one direction, but the thought process is in another direction. So yeah, I know it's variables that a lot of people don't think. And same thing in regards to the school. Like, yeah, same principle. We moved specifically on a street knowing exactly what school district and what schools my kids were going to go to, because we knew we wanted to walk to school and we didn't want our kids bused to school. And if they wanted to come home for lunch, this was distance and the location. And we paid a bit premium for it because we wanted that street, and there was only two streets that had that walking distance. But the kids grew up being able to walk home for lunch and bring their friends over, and it was just so convenient. So
100%.
yeah,
And like you were saying earlier, like what I was saying to you about the husband and wife with that the man cave and stuff. Some people will get all excited and then they start pushing people. Well, you said you wanted you. They're not listening to what people are saying to service them for what they want. They're too self-centered on what they want. If they want the sale, I want a client for life. That's the whole difference. Where that's where sales reps get the wrong impression, because they're pushing. Well, you said you like this. You said you want. Why aren't you going to do an offer? And then all of a sudden turns them right off, right? Because the wife was not speaking doesn't mean the wife doesn't have a say. So they just don't know how to read the room.
very much so. Very much so. Yeah, there's a lot of that bad stigma
Hmm.
Obviously, there's some good reps out there, and I know that even in our industry, there's this stigma that a lot of players out there are just out about the sale and about the transaction and upselling, and here's another product to buy. And the reality is that you and I are both in a very similar industry in the sense that we're solution selling,
Yes.
right? You're selling a solution to an expectation and a path. So when you're starting out and you're starting a family or you're moving out for the first time, you need to find the right solution. And then when you're let's call it a little bit older in life, you start thinking, okay, wait a minute, I don't need to live with this size of a house and I want to downsize or I want to simplify my life because I don't want to do gardening and taking out the garbage. And maybe I want to move into a condo but that's daunting for me thinking, okay, wait a minute, do I really want to go to a condo? And I'm going to need your advice on what does that look like, to make that transition, you know?
Sometimes I've got people to go to an Airbnb for 30 days and just try out a condo life. Just see, get your groceries, see how that works, see the elevators to see if you're ready for that. Or is maybe a bungalow better that you can do long term? You can put laundry upstairs or something like that. But again, listening to, not trying to just do the sale, because sometimes it's not right for them to move, and that's okay, because I'm not looking for them to, because if you've got commission breath, nobody likes that, right? Pushing people to what they want to do, right? You got to listen to what their needs are.
That's genius. I actually never even thought about that. Go rent a condo for a month with a Airbnb just to see the lifestyle experience. That's cool.
Yeah, but again, because I'm not looking out for the sale, I'm looking out for the lifetime relationship. It's just there's a totally different spin. Because if you're, yes, you should buy a condo. I don't want you to then have to sell it, because it's a lot of money to sell. The land transfer taxes, fee to sell. There's the inconvenience of selling. Let's just try it on for size.
Yeah, moving costs these days are like nothing under 100 grand by the
Yeah,
time you're
it's
all said and
ridiculous.
done.
Yeah,
It's
100.
a very expensive proposition moving from one location to another. So speaking about that, actually, I like to sort of a little bit of a pivot there. So everything is kind of going on out there right now, and there's an interesting set of rumbles. And I'm not going to get into politics. I don't want. We're not a political, conversation here. But you know, when it comes to real estate, at least in North America right now, we're going through a bit of a, let's call it, a rocky times.
Hmm.
I know cottages are a little bit on a shuffle right now. We hear in the news condo sales are a little bit in a shuffle right now. You know, with everything going on in the industry right now, what do you see as sort of? And I'm not looking from an investment standpoint because we're not again an advisory service, but what would you do for, and again I'm talking more customer service, what do you do to help customers sort of weather the storm and navigate through this uncertainty of what the news and the media is talking about, and how do you help people kind of figure those paths out?
So a couple things. I'm 55, so a lot of my friends and people I know are they're buying places or trying to help their kids with money. When I started, most people were 5% down. I'm amazed how many people are putting 20% down because they've got parent help, which is awesome. So so it depends. If right now from a condo perspective, 100% I'm telling people is a great opportunity to buy right now. Because what you're going to find in 5 years from now is, because the new condo sales, again, it depends how the media spins things. New condo sales, meaning new builds, are record low. There's places being canceled all the time because there's no appetite for new buildings, because they all got caught up on building these condos with 350 square feet, thinking people are going to pay $1 million for them. So there's going to be right now saturated demand. But in 5 years from now, you're going to find, like it happened in 2017, where they stopped building because of the 2008 kind of crash in the States. They thought we were going to crash. And then there's going to be, again, a big demand for condos or units in 5 years from now. Because the reality is, in Canada, 65% of all people that immigrate to Canada come to GTA. That's huge. So they need housing. So from a condo perspective, 100% time, great opportunities. I don't want to say deals, because what the other thing that people don't understand is there's a lot of supply right now, but there's a lot of fake sellers. We had this again in 2017. We had it for 6 months where, wow, my neighbor got 1.2 million, I can get 1.5 million, and there was that turnover. and they were fake sellers, because to me a real seller has got a need or a want to move. So now, so you can't look at that. Sometimes you look at, well, why is that condo for 800,000? This condo is the same condo for 600. Well, one has to sell and one's testing out the market. So if you take that out, it's pretty balanced market. Number two, with housing, if things are with houses, if things are priced properly. I had two listings. One of my team members had two. We had two of our team members had. We had seven offers, and we had two offers. One was two offers at $3 million, and one was a bungalow that had seven that sold for like $1.3 million. So if things are priced properly, they are selling because buyers are very educated. So it's not the market; it's just the agents that are. Unfortunately, in our industry, there's 76,000 members of the Toronto Real Estate Board, and half of them haven't made a sale this year. So most of them are part time. So if they don't know how to price a property properly or educate a seller or buyer, because if you are a seller that just wants to try the market, we're not interested in that, because it's not a win-win. It's not a win-win for the consumer that you put your house at. I'm seeing this in one particular part of GTA. They're putting their house, let's say, for $1 million. You put an offer in at 980, which is only 20,000 under list price, but they want $1.2 million. They sign back because, but you've been on the market for 60 days. Well, that's what the seller wants. Well, that's misleading. And that is happening in one community a lot. Well, that's not fair to the consumer. I don't want to be that agent that's telling the consumer that's coming to my house, like my listing, thinking they're going to buy and getting their hopes up that they can get this house for $1 million, and then being heartbroken, because who wants that? So that's happening. So you're just finding that a lot of people are not being where they need to be. But I can tell you, the housing market is probably up 1% from last year on houses and detached houses. Condos are definitely flat, and there's definitely saturation, but there's a lot of sellers that aren't real sellers right now. That's just the bottom line. They are testing the market. Normally, somebody, if I look at even when I bought my house in 2001, is that we bought a house and then we sold our house. That is a real seller. I have a need to sell because I've bought something, but we're just testing the market. And then they want unrealistic terms because they haven't bought anything. They want like a 3 month, 4 month, 5 month closing. Well, no one wants that, because who knows what could happen. The other thing that
Right.
I think is going to happen is the interest rates are going to go down again. And if the interest rates go 5 year fixed, anything under four, which is probably what's going to happen, you're going to go 3.99. You're going to find the herd mentality are going to start coming out again, because, oh, it's safe to buy, and then they're all going to come and we're going to be multiple offers again. Is what my prediction is. Definitely in
Yeah.
housing.
Yeah, I think that's going to be either by the summer, spring or summer. I think we'll see another kind of dip in that. And yeah, because what's the word? Perception is that once that percentage rate drops below a certain threshold, affordability becomes part of the equation, right? So the interest is not going to be the detriment to the
No.
purchase value of it.
And the
But you
reality,
you go
sorry,
ahead.
I
No,
said
go
the
ahead.
reality is October, November, December, and January of last year, the market was starting to really heat up. February, first week of February, we were in multiple offers again. The tariff thing started in the States, and then everything went on pause again because it's the uncertainty. But there's such pent up demand. People want to move on with their lives. So they are going to do that, right? It's just a matter of time. And if you want to live in Toronto, there's only so much dirt. There's no more dirt they're building in Toronto. If you want to live in Toronto, you're going to live in Toronto, because, like I said about the land transfer tax, it's a fortune, but people are paying it, just cost of doing business, right? Which is
Right.
unfortunate, but that's the reality.
It is right. Toronto is the highest demand city in the entire country, and obviously supply and demand, and that's just always going to bring up the cost when you are the most demand space in all of the country. Well, one of the things you kind of mentioned, I think it's um, a key factor there is experience and history. Based on just a few comments that you made, I found it very interesting from a perception, right? You're navigating the current challenges. You're able to provide the guidance and the experience on 2007 market. You know, you've been around for a long time, so you've seen some of the corrections, you've seen some of the blips. Obviously, we're going through a lot of, bad press and bad media it's happening today, but yet there is a realistic expectation that customers can actually come to you for sound advice. And I think that's always a challenge to find somebody that's trustworthy and being able to rely on. And how do you build that? How do you see your organization? How do you guys build the trust factor with consumers today, where there's such a tainted market?
I think it's all on the genuine asking of questions and getting to know what's really important to people. I think that people are pretty smart, and they can tell by, again, your body language, what the questions you're asking. Is your intention to help them and serve them, or is your intention to serve or help yourself? Right? So just know what's important to you. This is a big decision. Like if I'm sitting down with somebody with a buyer consultation, I'll say to them, okay, so you might have to see 60 houses before you see the one you want to see. And I actually find that their shoulders go down and think, wow, I was so expecting you to sell us, because, the expectation is that they think you're going to be sold. So you might see something, but what's your stomach tell you? Like, does it feel good? Do you feel that you can live here? Because I just don't want them to think we're going to go down and pick three houses and I'm going to tell you pick one. How do you feel? Can you see yourself? Drive the neighborhood. After our showing today, drive the neighborhood. Sit down at the bus stop. If you're buying a condo, go sit in the lobby for an hour. Bring a book. See who's coming in. See if, do you like the people you were worried about? There might be too many renters in here. Sit in the lobby. See if you feel you could live here. Those type of things. Because again, if it takes me a year or to find you a place you like, it doesn't matter. I don't care. And that's the same with our people. There's no pushiness because we're out to service people. And you know what happens sometimes? I'm taking, or some of my team members are taking people out on showings. They get two referrals before this person even buys. The other people, because we're just taking our time. Whatever is important to you is important to you.
Very cool. Yeah, it's interesting how you're dealing with customer service and that whole concierge experience on having that. And the customer experience seems to be like the top priority of your organization. So, as part of that, would you say that's part of your secret sauce, is being able to service the customer in a different light? And that's sort of one of the top advantages of working with your organization?
I think so. I think it's just the way I was trained in fast food. Like, when you're in fast food, again, when you're a picture on the wall, you can't really stand back and look at yourself. When I was in fast food, I didn't realize, wow, I'm dealing with the lowest level employee that there is, right? But I was always taught customer's always right. When the customer's, the customer's wrong, see rule number one, customer's always right. So I think that the service perspective is just how we are. And again, even with our staff treat, because we have two kind of clients. We have the client that buys and sells houses, and we have the client that's the agent. So our staff are all trained that the agents need something or the clients need something, we do whatever we can to help them, right? If whatever they need, we want them to come to us for every need. Like I said, they need a babysitter referral, a nanny referral. We try to help out everything that they could possibly need or find somebody in our network. I'll put out to my clients, somebody's looking for a nanny. I was very fortunate that one of my clients helped me get a nanny. They're Filipino, and this lady was with us for 5 years. We just sold a house to her. She's still part of our family. Like, just awesome. But I've helped so many people through that connections, because I have a lot of Filipino clients, and I've helped people get nannies through that connection, because it's especially with your kids, you're trusting people with your kids. Well, it's such a nice referral through referral, not going through agencies and stuff like that. So, because there's no vested interest. Oh, the agency's going to get paid, so they're just going to give you something. I think referrals are the best kind of compliment you could ever have.
Yeah, well, I fully agree with you. I think above and beyond everything that we do as an organization, and we're very aggressive when it comes to online advertising. We're in tech, so like
Yeah,
everything we do today is online. And
100%.
but I would say number one source of business today is still referrals. And especially where you know 90% of the stuff that you acquire in our industry is non-tangible, like,
Hmm.
again. So when you're buying something that's in the cloud and you're buying a subscription, you're sending money somewhere. You're just, okay, is the product or is the subscription going to do as advertised? And a lot of people don't realize that till down the path, where they've invested 3 to 6 months into a subscription. So having that referral network and that referral ecosystem is gold. There is, I don't think, anything better out there today than referrals,
Yeah,
especially
100%.
in what yeah, especially in what we're doing, right? At the end of the day, we're not, it's all about that. So I'm
And
going
you
to
have to
pivot this a little bit. Go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say, just to close that loop, you have to also be comfortable asking for referrals, right? Because a lot of people are uncomfortable asking, and what I found, again, doing this so long, is good people know good people, idiots know idiots. Because I've there's people that I should delete it out of the database, like very few, but and it's true. And if I'm in rapport with somebody, I say, good people know good people, assholes know assholes. Do you know anybody good like you that's looking to do something? Like, have a joke, because make it look like I'm human, not like I'm desperate for something, but asking for that referral. If you really like our product, our service, would you mind giving speaking, whatever it is, but finding something like that? Because a lot of people are uncomfortable asking referrals. Well, you did a good job. Don't be afraid to, ask, because, asking starts the receiving process.
That is a highlight right there for our podcast today is don't be afraid to ask, because if you don't ask, you don't get,
100%.
pretty much. Right. So, yeah, no, I'm going to say that that's the highlight of this podcast today. Cause I think from a business standpoint, a lot of businesses out there today struggle with growth, and they
Hmm.
don't realize that the old saying, right? One in the hand is better than two in the bush, right? Like you've got a client in your hand. They know people. If they trust you with their business or their dollars, they must be willing enough to do that referral, and they will only do it usually 9 out of 10 times if you ask it.
100%.
So yeah, no, I fully agree with you on that one. I think that one, we can go down the rabbit hole on how building a referral network. Maybe we'll do a second podcast on exclusively on building a referral network program and how
Yep.
you guys build that out. But I wanted to kind of sort of lead towards I call it the final transition of the segment is, what do you see as the future? Like, what is your industry? And I'm talking like 5 years down the road, spaceships and VR, and I just ordered my new Meta glasses, so I'm going to hopefully
Okay.
have those soon too. And
That's cool.
yeah, so I tried them on. I thought it was pretty cool. You got the cameras in there. It's got all this AI stuff, and apparently they're doing an upgrade on the camera. So like we're moving into a world that the experience is going to evolve. And I'd love to have your perspective or what your vision is on what your industry is going to look like. Let's call it 5 years down the road, and what the rub the lamp and say, okay, this is what we're going to see in a couple of years from now. What do you see?
I I don't think, me personally, because I've just shown so many people. I think the VA glasses and virtual tours and stuff, I think they're great. That stuff exists ish now, but people still, when they walk in, they thought, "Oh my god, this place was my favorite and I hate this." And the one that wasn't on my list, I wanted to see because I picked it, because pictures, we can do so many things with technology. We can virtual stage, but they're so disappointed. How many times out of 100, people have a favorite one that they love, the virtual tour, they love the pictures, they love this, and they walk in and think this is not it, right? So because you can do Matterport, you can go by room and walk through rooms, but it doesn't give you a feel. So I don't think that that's ever going to change, where people are still going to have to physically walk through the house. The other thing that I don't think is going to change is that no seller is going to just let random people come to their house, right? Because of just here's the keys, just walk in. For sale by owners, like people trying to sell their house, I since I've been in the business 26 years, I think there's been like 10 companies that went broke because the concept just doesn't work, because the seller wants a price up here and the buyer wants a price down here, and they can never kind of meet, right? Because it's emotional, because they come in too low, the people are irked and they're pissed off and they argue, but we take the emotion out of it. So there's still that emotional thing that's going to be there. But I think that real estate in 5 years from now in Toronto is going to go absolutely bonkers from a perspective of sales. But I don't see the meta glasses and stuff helping real estate that way, because I just think that people are still going to want to, they're going to want to try on a pair of pants, but they're not just going to order online and just, these are great. They're going to want to walk through the houses. They're going to want to, like, see the bathroom size instead of just seeing it on it because camera, because all that exists now, and it hasn't helped sales. To me, I'd say out of 10 people, eight don't like what they think they're going to love online. So unless it really you walk through with like the meta and you can actually put the goggles on, you can actually see. But I still think they're going to want to see. Okay, I go in the backyard. Can I see the neighbors? Can I hear things? I just don't think technology is going to catch up that much in 5 years. Maybe it will, but if anything, it'll support it. It won't hurt it. But I still think the need of physically walking through places are going to still be high on demand list for people.
So the change of that whole concept of virtual reality is just not going to be there. Your vision, and I agree with you. I think that there's no matrix. At the end of the day, we're not in the movie of a matrix where I can stand in your lobby. And I haven't tried on the Apple goggles, which apparently is phenomenal. I haven't done those ones yet, but having that experience of a virtual walkthrough of a remote, call it residence. Yeah, I agree with you. It's too hard to call it ingest. It's kind of like the best analogy I can tell you is when I look at the vacation pamphlets and I see the beautiful rooms and all the amenities, and they've got it staged out with wide angle lenses, and they've done a
Yeah.
great job photoshopping it. And then you get down to Mexico or whatever resort you're looking forward to, and then the room is like literally half the size from the photo, and you're like, how did they do that? And how did they squeeze all that into the picture? And the pool is a lot smaller than the perception.
Yes,
So
100%. I hear it
it's
all the time. Like it's amazing. It's because
yeah.
that's what people do, right? and um and you can't even tell people, why don't you sit on the couch, see if you can see, can you see yourself sitting in this family room, can you see yourself like that you said about the man cave, can you see you could see yourself doing all those things, right? But if you don't actually visualize, okay, where are the kids going to play or whatever, they can't visualize that stuff. I get sometimes people sit on the couch, can you see entertaining here? Entertaining was something you said was important. Can you see yourself entertaining here? Which I just don't think you can do virtually enough. But I heard the Apple goggles are pretty amazing as well.
Yeah, I haven't tried those on yet. They're not as popular because of their price point today, but as you know, technology will only get cheaper as it becomes more mainstream. So, my perception of the technology in your space, I think, is going to be interesting because I think the back end efficiencies are going to be improved.
That's going to be amazing.
Yeah, because I think for me, it's like, okay, first time homeowner, or like almost like an assessment tool. First time homeowner wants to live in this neighborhood. You've got cultural types of schools, programs, whatever it is, amenities, and it can basically now siphon everything for you and narrow down. I would say you almost can go through the entire directory and just narrow it down to higher probability based on so-called the emotional checklist,
Yes.
and make it more accessible to a higher, what's the word, target. Like you basically are going to not have to see 60 homes. Maybe we'll get down to 30 homes and maybe have that, more targeted, filtering through AI and through some of the data analytics that's going to come with technology. So what are your thoughts about that back end support for the business side of things?
I'm very excited about the back end with technology. I think that's where you're going to have the from running my business perspective. I feel like there's going to be a plug and play where it's going to be like, as soon as the deal is closed, the basket is ordered, the home show tickets are sent, and like from that perspective is going to be awesome. Building out that, and again, it's going to be the efficiencies are going to be taking out the human error, taking out the spelling errors of people's names, taking out spelling errors of addresses and stuff. I think that stuff I'm very excited about, because I just think I can deliver more. I'm not thinking about having less staff. I'm thinking about how I can deliver more, just more efficient, 100% more efficient.
I can't wait for that whole integration to go straight from agent to lawyer, from lawyer to registration, fully streamlined, without having me to. I remember the whole headache of going back and forth and sending documents and
Yes,
paper, and now it's all going to be like streamlined. I can see this all happening. Like you select your solicitor that's going to be doing all the registration and all the background search, and that's going to be all automated, and they're just going to verify all the information, and you guys, like you said, will be 50%, 80% more efficient once the tools are built out there. So as a final note, like, what words of wisdom do you think you want to leave us with today in respect to technology, real estate, and how to kind of leave us on a high note here? What any words of wisdom you want to leave us with?
I think, like, embrace technology. Unfortunately, in my industry, a lot of people get in, the average age is like 50, so they're technology afraid. So I think that, technology is there to support us as humans. I love technology. I love learning new things. And I think from a tech perspective, embrace it. Don't do so the new things. Don't be afraid of AI. Don't be afraid of things. Just find people that know your strengths and how you can find a streamline what works for you quicker, because that's the way I am. Just tell me what to do and I'll do it. And then from a real estate perspective, I'm a buy and hold guy. I think that, when you buy your first home, if you can, anything you can do to hold on to real estate, especially in Toronto, there's no more dirt. So long term, you're going to be fine. The average home has went up 7.6% since 1969. It's tax free to sell, tax free investment, which is great because who wants to pay taxes? But I think I'm very excited about the future. The next 5 years, it's going to be phenomenal.
Amazing. Well, thank you, Jeff, for being on our podcast. Thank you for all of you for listening. If you guys want any additional advice on real estate, I think everybody should really take a call and give Jeff and his team at Remax a call. I think they're doing a great job out there. It's great to meet you. Uh, Thank you for listening, and don't forget to like and subscribe to our podcast. And if you have any other questions or want any future topics to be heard on our show, please give us a comment in the comment section. Looking forward to having you guys back in the future. Thank you so much for being here.